Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shaleen, Partner Development Director at Kira Asia. Today, we have three panelists with me to talk about re-commerce, the birth of e-commerce in Southeast Asia. So let me take some time to introduce to you our panelists for today. We have Aloysius, the co-founder and CEO of Refresh, a re-commerce platform for women to buy and sell gently used fashion for clothing. It runs a omni-channel model with 12 retail outlets in Singapore and Malaysia. Then we have Elvin, the founder of Laco6. He's a serial entrepreneur who started his first company at 19 and has been building businesses and launching products ever since. He has a proven track record in raising venture capital and generating returns for investors. Lastly, we have Kaitia. He's the strategy director at Carousel and is one of the world's fastest growing classified marketplaces, valued at more than $900 million today. And it's on a mission to inspire the world to start selling and buying. Now let's start with the session officially. A confluence of factors have led to the rapid adoption of e-commerce over the last decade, but COVID-19 was a true inflection point. What was once a supplementary avenue became the preferred channel. And lately, a specific subset of e-commerce, the resale market, has grabbed headlines across the world. So my first question is to Kaitia. For a start, could you share some stats on how Carousel has fared so far in the last 3 quarters, and if there was a trade category that outperformed the rest?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Kaitia. Glad to be here today. So I think during this difficult time, we do see that our mission at Carousel is more relevant than ever because, as Charlene said, right, we want to inspire the world to sell and buy to make more possible for each other. And from this time, from just February to June alone, more than $1 billion worth of transactions took place on our platform. And if you think about it, that's close to like $5,000 per minute. And our users are actually using this platform to make ends meet by selling items for extra cash or accessing necessities more affordably. So we have seen some stories of how some of our users unfortunately got retrenched and had to sell things such as their phones to pay the bills or need to buy a second-hand laptop for their child. And we feel a very strong sense of responsibility during this time to be able to deliver this value to our users. So it's not just like casual users like you and me, but also the brick and mortar businesses. A lot of them were caught by surprise by this pandemic as their physical footfall actually dipped to zero and were struggling really to transform and go online. So we actually realized that Carousel's simplicity of being able to stat list sell was actually a very good fit for them. And in fact, we've been working with governments in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Malaysia to try to onboard a lot of these mom and pop stores. And it's not really just in goods, but we also see in services as well. For instance, like aircon cleaning, plumbing, or even just electronics repairs. So organically, we are seeing quite strong growth with businesses and consumers going really deep into our services category.
Thanks for sharing. I think that's very interesting. I recently checked out the property tab because it's a very hot market in Singapore. Now, next question here is fashion and tech gadgets fall under want and not need, and purchase is really made during optimistic times. So COVID-19 has really slowed down the global economy. And for some countries, unfortunately, it has reversed years of progress and growth. So many people like me are really very cautious with discretionary spending. So I just want to ask this to Aloysius and Alvin, if this has affected you. Aloysius, please.
Hi everyone. I'm from Refresh. Thank you, Charlene. So COVID affected everyone. It's a global pandemic, and during this time, all our stores during the Malaysia MCO and also the circuit breaker in Singapore, we had to close our outlets for 2.5 months, and inevitably that also represents zero cash flow for us. But what I have to say is Refresh is not as badly hit as a result of consumers seeking for alternatives. And when you talk about demand for Refresh, we do not talk about just the buying side. We are talking about the buy side and the sell side, so both ends of the spectrum. So demand to sell with Refresh and demand to buy at Refresh. And Clearly, we are always at the mercy of our sellers who represents our supply chain. We are not like a conventional fashion retail store where if something sells well, you can just buy another 1,000 pieces of it. During the circuit breaker, we see that there are more sellers who came forward. That resulted in an increase in the demand to sell. And as a result, we are opening more outlets as compared to closing them. And also we are seeing the demand increasing as consumers are seeking for alternatives. So I think in general, consumers still have deterrence towards buying secondhand fashion. Education is still needed. But of course, consumers' preferences are shifting towards one which is more acceptance towards the sharing economy and sustainable fashion.
Congrats, Aloysius, on the opening of new outlets. Now, how about yourself, Elvin? And you've noticed any changes at Laco 6?
Yeah, it's great to hear. It's great to hear that with Aloysius things are doing well with Refresh. We're happy to hear that. To build a little bit about what we do here at Laco 6 in Indonesia, what we do is that we operate a platform to help sellers sell their phone easily to business buyers, right? So similar to Refresh, it's a two-sided marketplace. If there's no supply, if there's nobody selling phones, then the model doesn't fly, right? So what we have seen, and for us, a big majority of where we get our sellers are the customers who buy new phones and decide to trade in or decide to sell their used phones within the same process, right? So obviously, here in Indonesia, we had a pretty challenging quarter2. The shops are not open. The malls cannot be open, right? And when that stops, naturally that part of our business has stopped as well, right? Now, but what we are actually optimistic about is that as of today in quarter3, we have already recovered to pre-pandemic Q1 levels, right? So the business has resumed back to normal. However, fingers crossed, whether or not we will get to see the usual Q4 holiday rush. At this point, it's really anybody's guess. And we're hearing from other handset manufacturers that they see the same recovery in their business. One hypothesis that I think we share is that when it comes to phones, although phones, the price points of phones put them into a discretionary spending item, right? So obviously this is your bread and butter, right? But at the same time, it is not the price range of luxury, right? To a lot of people, it is a slightly more expensive essential. It's something that you need, and it doesn't go into the realm where you kind of put it off for 1-2 years. So what we're seeing is that it turns out majority of the customers that are in the market for buying phones have already built up their spending built up their savings over the last couple of months, right? So they are still able to go ahead with their purchase as intended when the stores open. However, I think where we will likely see impact, hopefully not so bad, is when they purchase their next phone, right? Because as the economy gets bad, they may stretch the lifespan of their phone. If they typically upgrade within 18 months, they might do it in 24, 26 months instead. So that's something that, hopefully doesn't become too bad, but we're mindful of that. One point that Aloysius brought up is the interest towards secondhand products. There's a little bit of a stigma, but we do see that, interestingly, during this period of time, and actually our contacts, our friends at Google Indonesia have told us that searches for used phone pricing and used phone products in general have actually gone up a lot during the pandemic. Right, so I think it shows that people are indeed seeing used products as a way to, manage their spending. Right, with this situation going on, they are more open to try new things, including experimenting, buying a used phone rather than a brand new phone. Right, so that is what we have observed over here.
Yeah, I fully agree on your point about mobile phones being actually more of a need than a want, actually. So now my next question is for Kaitia. Since Carousel is a pioneer in the resale market, both our panelists have talked about the slight stigma and how it's shifting. So in your opinion, why do you think that has changed, or how do you think that has changed?
Okay, yeah. So I think there used to be a certain stigma of secondhand, right, as Aloysius and Elvin spoke about. But I think I do see it gradually declining in all parts of the world. I think there's quite a fair bit of macro factors of this. Number one is really this whole idea of the growing consciousness about sustainability. And it's not just about, environment in that sense, but rather this idea that you are consuming in a very conscious manner, and you are really very aware of the amount of waste that you're actually producing in that sense. I think that's one. I think number two is, as Aloysius spoke about, right, the sharing economy and the end of ownership, such that then consumers are now looking at things not as, okay, things that I will own forever, but rather I can actually sell it away, and vice versa, right? That I am also then open to buying something that's pre-owned, whether it be brand new or even used. So and I think a lot of it is that the younger generation, like your Gen Zs and millennials, are increasingly powering this attitude, especially in the US and also in Europe. So in fact, I mean, there's a number that always sticks in my head, which is that in 2016, about 45% of females are open to secondhand. I think that this was a survey done by ThredUp in the US. And you fast forward just 3 years, 2019, it's about 7 in 10. And that's a huge increase. So you will see these gradually really growing over time, not just in the developed economies, but also in the developing economies. And I think COVID has also accelerated this whole idea of sustainability as well. It's a big blow to the consumer consciousness, as much as it is also now going to be also a need in that sense, because you need to make ends meet, you need to actually assess necessities in that sense affordably, right? So as you mentioned also, right, that laptops and mobile phones, they are no longer just wants, but they can potentially be needs as well, because you need them to be plugged into this modern economy. You need them for education during times when you can't go to school and you have to actually go on Zoom calls or any other kind of edtech platforms to be able to access education. So sometimes the only way for people to be able to get them affordably is definitely going to be through secondhand. Yeah.
I like that you mentioned sustainability. I think it's a theme that has really been gaining popularity in the last couple of years thanks to activists. But as the individual consumer, I certainly agree. Pretty much in all aspects of my life, I try to watch your expenses towards like new goods, because it's also not good for the environment at large. So just now, Kaitian mentioned a point and that I would like to build up for Aloysius. So another research that we talked about previously, right, by BCG, for secondhand apparel, footwear, accessories, they now represent about 30 to 40 million in value, 30 to 40 billion, sorry, in value worldwide. So how big do you think is the Asian market vis-a-vis our Western counterparts?
Thanks, Charlene. Yeah, so first of all, I have to say that Refresh is a very small player in Singapore. I mean, in terms of the listings that we have, even for fast fashion, we are nowhere near what Carousel has in Singapore. So what we wanted to offer is an alternative for sellers to buy and sell in the easiest way possible, and try and attract people who otherwise would not have think of buying or selling secondhand. So, well, let's take for instance US, which is a very mature market for secondhand resale. So, Kajian mentioned ThredUp, right? There are many other players like Poshmark, TradeZ, or even the traditional retail players like Uptown Cheapskate, who runs a very successful franchise model. They have proven that the business model, this resale model, is profitable in their country. Of course, US is a huge market. But first of all, I think that's because the market has already matured. Consumers on both ends of the spectrums, being buyers and sellers, they have the right mindset. So, for instance, they are willing to sell their items on ThredUp and get paid 50 cents to $1 for international fast fashion labels like Gap and Zara. But in newer markets like the one that we are in Singapore, sellers do still have that reference pricing on their end. So they expect that for the Love Bonito, example, for the Love Bonito piece that they bought, they expect a certain percentage return for the items if they are going to sell. And then on the buying end, we also have to think about changing consumer mindset. How can we change buying secondhand or thrift shopping in such a way where it can be fun and enjoyable. And that's also why at Refresh, we try to reimagine how buying secondhand can be by giving them a very delightful experience when they go online or even when they visit the stores. So this entire COVID, as Katia has mentioned, right, it has accelerated the shift to thrift. And during circuit breaker, we are even seeing what we call as a CB clean out frenzy, where a lot of people are just, doing that Marie Kondo thing and trying to sell as many things as they can because they're all stuck at home, right? And then what we are also seeing is that consumers are seeing thrift shopping as affordable fun. So on the sell side, we are seeing the increase. On the buy side, we are seeing the increase. I think e-commerce is definitely here to stay, but a lot of education is still needed on both ends of the spectrum.
I think the term affordable fun is a great hook for women like me. So you can consider that for your marketing materials. And now I'm going back to Alvin. So the average man on the street with goods to sell typically lack the technical and marketing capabilities to do so. And that's something that Aloysius mentioned also, right? Providing buyers and sellers with the right tools. So it's heartening and interesting that for all three platforms, Carousel, Laco6, and Refresh, provide this platform to empower buyers and sellers. But the problem is for mobile phones, it's a very specific category. And I can imagine there are multiple sellers for the same phone or same model. So how does Laco6 help to manage this competition?
Sure. Actually, a lot of what we do here at Laco6 very much mirrors, what Aloysius does at Refresh. Maybe less affordable because we are phones, not fashion. Hopefully, not less fun, just less affordable, right? So in terms of what we see is that one clarification about our model though is that we are fundamentally different from what the folks over at Carousel are doing. I'm a user of Carousel myself. I use it to sell some stuff, to buy some stuff, right? So fantastic product they have over there. What we have seen though is that there are some customers that just can't be bothered, right? There are some customers just can't be bothered. They can't be bothered even with a very simple process like snap this and sell, right? They just want to get somebody to, you just take my phone and give me cash. I do not want to nego with somebody. I do not want to chat with somebody. And I do not want to just go through all that hassle, right? So what we do is we appeal to this set of customers. We serve this set of customers. We are a C2B model, right? So when our consumers, when our sellers sell on our business, sell on our platform, they do not sell to another consumer, but they sell to they sell to thousands of these ready business buyers, right? And that is why we're able to offer a differentiated offering, really emphasizing on speed. Now, our value proposition for our users is that if you want to sell your phone, you download an app, you run a test, within 10 minutes, we'll give you an offer. If you take it within 24 hours, somebody will pick up the phone at your doorstep and instantly you get cash, right? So that's it. That's basically what we do. So what we're seeing is that, in times like this, what is happening is that even the manufacturers have this problem whereby, that I think it's common that people nowadays are starting to say that, the iPhone 12 is really not that different from the iPhone 11. And the 11 is not that different from the 10, right? And you can say the same for Samsung and any other models. So one way to actually get people to keep upgrading is to make it more affordable. Rather than trying to get you to buy a $1,500 phone every year, if they allow you to sell your used phone in the same process, you may end up only having to pay something like $700 or $800, right? So that way they can make it more affordable. It is good for consumers who want to upgrade. At the same time, the used phone that is being sold, we believe that it does a greater good because, common saying in our industry is that one person's trash is another person's treasure, right? For somebody who maybe has a little bit of a, spending limit on their side, to be able to buy an affordable iPhone X today is a wonderful thing, right? So it helps with that as well. On the sustainability point, I think Kaiji brought up one interesting point on sustainability. I remember yesterday I was just reading this article that even Tesla, clean vehicles are great for the environment, but somewhere along the line, people are going to need to figure out what to do with all the batteries, right? So I think for phones, people are starting to see that as well, right? A lot of those things are actually very difficult to recycle, right? So rather than letting it go to a landfill, let somebody buy it off of them instead, right? So I do feel that those things combined together creates a perfect storm whereby, if the global economy can get over COVID. I do believe, similar to Aloysius and Kai-Jie, that there's still a lot of grass ahead of us. There's still a lot of opportunity for growth.
Brilliant, very well said. So now that brings me to the very last question. I'm just curious to hear your final thoughts on the future of your company or the market in Southeast Asia or Asia at large. So whether it's expanding into different trade categories like Carousel, building on this affordable fund by Refresh, or like Laku 6, trying to make the entire process as seamless as possible for your buyers and sellers. So maybe Kai-Jie, you'd like to start us off.
Yeah, sure. I think that Southeast Asia, it continues to be really a very high growth region with really very exciting problem statements that will continue to draw your investors and your talent to solve the biggest, most meaningful problems, right? I mean, we've seen like from the Google Temasek and Bain's e-economy report released maybe just last week that the Southeast Asia economy remains very resilient with COVID. And they call out like fintech, health tech, and ed tech. But I think all three speakers will agree. I think that re-commerce will be one of those next big things to solve also, because that will really solve some of the world's most wicked problems on accessibility, as well as sustainability. And effectively, we are really just less than 1% done here in Southeast Asia, similar to like Carousel, right? We try to inspire the world to sell and buy, and we know that there's a lot of barriers to secondhand, and there are multiple ways that you can skin the cat, like what Aloysius does and what Alvin does and what Carousel does also. We all know what are some of their barriers, right? So for instance, like, fear of lemons, fear of counterfeits, lack of recourse, or you are just plain too lazy to go and sell anything, or there's a lot of fear that the buyer will scam you. So at Carousel, we've been trying to solve that by really being very heads down focused, relentless about making it easier to sell through, right? Through AI, machine learning. We do suggested fields, we do selling price based on what has sold. We improve the review system so that we try to minimize, we try to improve trust on the platform. But one thing for sure is that all three of us won't really just stop there, because we know that there's a lot more users in the markets that have not bought or sold secondhand yet. So we want to try to solve for them. And that's why also on Carousel, right, the vision is really to try to make secondhand first choice so that we can be part of that big solve.
Thank you. Aloysius, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so similarly to what Kai-Jie has shared, just last week I was having this conversation with one of our angel investors, and he pops up the same question again on whether we will have enough supply in terms of fast fashion, right? Because we were just sharing to him about the fact that over at our end, we are always constantly struggling with the fact that we need quality supply from our sellers. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of clothes, right? But in order to have that top 30 or 40% of quality supply for us to meaningfully push out to buyers, that's one challenge. And he just asked us whether we have that, do we ever run out of sellers? Very simply, I said no, because just looking at the demographics of women in Singapore and the fact that we only have 25,000 sellers on our end, it means that we are, I think, not less than 1%, we are less than 0.5%. So we are very far away from really where we want to be. Also the fact that Southeast Asia is indeed a very good place to set foot in terms of doing that re-commerce push that we are doing. That's why we expanded to Malaysia. And unfortunately, because the situation there is not favorable, and this has been such a testing year, right? But it also brought about a lot of new revelations on our end. In terms of, customers are also asking us, when are we going to go into other verticals? Sorry, not verticals, but are we going to go up or down the spectrum, right? Because we deal in fast fashion. But the truth is, textile wastage is happening at where we are at, fast fashion. So it contributes to majority of the textile wastage going to the landfills. So I think when times get uncertain, we are all focusing on saving. We are all focusing on the family balance sheet. So brands whose core proposition delivers value and convenience have the opportunity to gain share. And I mean, very much for me and Refresh, we will not stop until we can reach, for instance, many more states in Malaysia or even other parts of Southeast Asia.
Alvin?
Yeah. So the way we see this is that the business that we are in fundamentally, the resale of used products is a decades-old business, right? This is really not new. I mean, I think most of the panelists grew up in Singapore. If I presume, we will remember the early days. The current goodies coming to our house, taking used newspapers and a TV, right? So at the atomic level, what we do is really not different from that. Now, what makes us different, I think all three of us, is the technology behind it. Right, and I do think that technology, not just in the fancy stuff that the users see, I mean that's part of that, but technology to the front, technology in the back end, how things operate. I think where Southeast Asia, provides a unique challenge is just in its sheer diversity that creates challenges. Carousel today operates, offices in so many different countries in Southeast Asia. Aloysius, Malaysia, Singapore. We operate in Indonesia only for today, but in Indonesia and Thailand. But Indonesia is a country with 1,000 islands. Right, so all of these things put together, technology becomes the key, right? Some of the things that the other guys have mentioned, we do those. We do a little bit of other stuff as well. For instance, we know that when you try to sell a phone to somebody, one big difficulty is in the appraisal, right? How do you appraise the value of the phone? How do you appraise the quality of the phone, right? We, for example, rather than relying on human and just general experience to know how to test the GPS of the phone, we do that through software today. We do that through an app. We provide a feature where if you upload a picture of your phone, I can tell you what condition it is in, and I can help you predict what price you're able to fetch, right? To kind of make things easier. That's on the fancy side. That's what the users see. But on the back end, how do we make sure that the right seller is connected to the right buyer, right? Across 1,000 islands, how do we get everything to function across fast? A lot of the amazing stuff that, for instance, Amazon does on technology actually happens at the back end. It is on its backbones, right? So I think that is where Southeast Asia provides a very unique challenge for us. It is a decades-old business. It will continue to thrive. And we believe that if we use technology to solve these problems, then as Southeast Asia market grows, we are really only seeing the tip of the iceberg in terms of e-commerce. We've seen it become very big in the places like the US and Japan. We believe that Southeast Asia, hopefully not too far away. And if we can, cement ourselves there and provide something good for customers, I do believe that, again, the future is very bright.
Well, thank you all three of you for sharing today. I'm pretty sure everyone here has learned a lot, and now we're either inspired to buy or sell, or like what Kai Jie said, right, join in or participate in this ecosystem to solve the pain points so we can grow together. And I'm sure many of you in the audience have questions for our panelists today, so let's head over to the next segment. Thank you.